In 2013, Edward Snowden sent the world reeling when he leaked classified NSA documents detailing the mass surveillance of almost all electronic communication. Snowden was the face of the biggest government leak in history, and he became a lightning rod for controversy. Hailed as a hero by some and branded a traitor by others. However, in the current day, Snowden seems to have drifted from public view. But how could the person responsible for the most infamous government leak in history just seem to fade away? So let's explore whatever happened to Edward Snowden. Hi everyone, my name is Otto and welcome to Exits Examined. We'll be exploring the lives of people, products, and more after their time has seemingly come to an end. If that sounds good to you, there's a subscribe button below. Most people are familiar with the Snowden story on some level, but diving into his backstory is extremely interesting because this background would absolutely have a role in shaping his future actions. Edward Snowden was born in North Carolina into a family deeply rooted in military service, with members who had served in the FBI, Coast Guard, and the Navy. Actually, the lineage of his family's involvement in national security could be traced all the way back to the Revolutionary War, and he was raised with the expectation of following in their footsteps, or at the very least to work within the federal government. However, his early years were marked by a ton of difficulties, and things did not exactly go according to plan. His parents' marriage was rocky at best, and academic struggles eventually led him to drop out of high school. Despite these setbacks, Snowden discovered a remarkable aptitude for computers and honed his tech skills through computer classes at a local community college and eventually earned his GED. Deeply inspired after 9/11, Snowden enlisted in the Army Reserve as a Special Forces candidate in 2004. However, this military career was short-lived, as he was discharged just 4 months later. Now, he claimed to have broken his legs, but the Army insists that he just flunked out. In any event, the result was the same, and in what very well could have been a low for him, Snowden found employment as a security guard at the Center for Advanced Study of Language in Maryland. And this center just so happened to be sponsored by none other than, drumroll please, the National Security Agency, or the NSA. During this time, Snowden attended a 2006 job fair, which would eventually lead him to getting an offer that would change his life forever from the CIA. He immediately took the job, and a former coworker at the time described him as a genius among geniuses. High praise indeed. He definitely must have impressed someone though, because he pretty quickly transitioned into a cushy job in Geneva, Switzerland. He got some nice perks here, including top secret clearance, a 4-bedroom apartment, and presumably decent pay because he bought expensive cars and started traveling around Europe. But despite all this, for Snowden, disillusionment was starting to creep in. He would later recount an incident during this period where he claimed the CIA orchestrated a Swiss banker to get drunk and then encouraged him to drive home. When the banker was arrested for drunk driving, a CIA operative offered assistance in exchange for the banker becoming an informant. Maybe because of these hesitations, in 2009, after being suspected of trying to break into classified files, he left the CIA to work for Dell as a subcontractor to the NSA. Assigned to a post near Tokyo, this should have been the dream for a self-proclaimed anime/Japanese culture fan. However, it was obvious from online posts at this time that he was still angry, particularly at the Obama administration. It was also interesting because other online posts from him at this time were particularly hostile against people who leaked classified information, which is probably an indication he wasn't thinking about leaking anything just yet. However, the leaks from Chelsea Manning seemed to have a profound impact on him, and he began seriously toying with the idea of doing something similar. Returning to Maryland in 2011, he assumed the role of lead technologist on Dell's CIA account and began downloading the very same documents that he would later leak. Snowden would later say that his breaking point was on March 15, 2013, 3 days after witnessing what he would later describe as the Director of National Intelligence blatantly lying under oath to Congress when he testified that the NSA does not collect telephone records of Americans. Others have speculated that his frustration may have stemmed from being passed over for a promotion, but either way, it's apparent that Snowden had been contemplating this decision for a while. In May 2013, Snowden took a medical leave of absence and traveled to Hong Kong, carrying with him a trove of state secrets. It was here that he conducted his infamous series of interviews with The Guardian. Because he was trying to avoid detection, the reporters actually had no idea what he looked like, and in a very James Bond-esque moment, Snowden said he would meet them in a specified hotel lobby, and they would know him because he'd be the one holding a Rubik's Cube. So, what did Snowden actually reveal? Well, among the many leaks, some of the most notable were, number one, that the NSA was collecting vast amounts of data from companies like Google, Facebook, and Yahoo. This included things like emails, chats, photos, and even videos. Number two, the NSA was collecting the phone data of Verizon customers on a regular and daily basis. And finally, number three, that the NSA was collecting emails and messaging of millions of people worldwide. Crucially, this included not only hostile foreign powers, but also allies as well, up to and including the then Chancellor of Germany. And this was not taken very kindly by said allies. Now, it would be an understatement to say that the NSA was rocked by these leaks. However, they quickly identified Snowden as the source. To control his side of the narrative before the US government could, Snowden released a video explaining his side of the story and that he saw himself as a whistleblower. The US government, unsurprisingly, did not agree and quickly deemed him a traitor under the Espionage Act. And just like that, the hunt for Snowden was on. The next few weeks were most likely some of the most stressful in Snowden's life, as he desperately tried to find where and how to find asylum. All this while playing a game of cat and mouse with the US government, who was desperately trying to hunt him down. Now, WikiLeaks and Julian Assange were very eager to get in on the story and intervene to help Snowden, who was at this time still hiding in Hong Kong. WikiLeaks had apparently arranged asylum for Snowden in Ecuador, and amazingly enough, Snowden was allowed to get on a plane at the Hong Kong airport. Now, obviously, the US government had sent a notice to the local authorities to, stop Snowden if he tried to do this, but Hong Kong alleges that there was a spelling mistake on Snowden's name in the alert sent out by the US government. But a lot of people think that they just didn't really want to be involved in the affair and just wanted to pass the problem on. During his flight, Snowden's passport was revoked, and he had to stop in the Moscow airport, where he'd end up staying for more than a month in limbo. In Moscow, Putin confirmed Snowden's presence, and he said that if Snowden wished to remain in Russia, he must, quote, stop his work aimed at bringing harm to our American partners. On the other hand, there were allegedly repeated offers by the Russian government for his asylum in exchange for US state secrets and cooperation, which Snowden has denied doing. Now, it was during this time that US officials believe Snowden would be smuggled out of Russia on the president of Bolivia's plane, and they would, in a drastic move, force the plane to land. This was seen as an overt and obscene use of force and became yet another embarrassment after it was revealed that Snowden was not actually on the plane. Russia would eventually grant Snowden temporary refugee status, and this is where he has remained to this very day. So, what happened in the immediate aftermath? The revelations themselves sparked widespread public shock and outrage, as you might expect, with many questioning the extent of government surveillance and the implications for individual privacy. Then there was, of course, the insane media frenzy of the story, with news outlets around the world scrambling to analyze the documents and interview Snowden. As far as the US government, it was initially in damage control mode, attempting to downplay the significance of the leaks and reassure the public that the NSA programs were quite legal and necessary. However, the Obama administration faced mounting pressure from Congress and the public to address the concerns raised by the leaks. In August 2013, Obama announced the creation of an independent panel to examine the US government's surveillance practices. That panel's findings, published in December, recommended that the mass collection of telephone records be suspended and advised greater oversight of these programs. In 2014, The Guardian and Washington Post were awarded the Pulitzer Prize for public service for their roles in reporting the NSA leaks. Snowden characterized the award as a vindication of his efforts to bring the secret surveillance programs to light. As far as day-to-day changes for people like you and me, there was an increased awareness worldwide regarding how governments and tech giants collect personal data. This awareness has led to a broader adoption of encryption. According to Snowden, end-to-end encryption was a pipe dream in 2013 when the story broke, but now it's pretty common. However, despite these changes, Snowden remains critical and warns that surveillance technology is so much more advanced and intrusive today than what it was in 2013. Culturally, the Snowden leaks have left their impact as well, with a number of Snowden-related media being released. Probably the most well-known is, of course, Citizen4, which is a 2014 documentary film about Edward Snowden and the NSA spying scandal. It has real-life footage of Snowden talking with the Guardian reporters in the Hong Kong hotel room. Actually, the makers of the film had to take pretty extreme measures to even release it because of fear that the FBI would just take the hard drives and footage during editing. It's very well done and worth a watch. It's available on YouTube, so you have no reason not to check it out. It wasn't just documentaries, though. Oh no. There was also a Snowden movie directed by Oliver Stone, which is more of a Hollywood take with some huge actors like Nicolas Cage. It's basically an attempt to tell the story in a more accessible, mainstream way. Now, thank God for the internet, because amazingly enough, we have a video game adaptation. Snowden Runner 3D is an endless runner game and contains 3 different randomly generated levels: NSA headquarters, Hong Kong, and Moscow Airport. Upon Snowden's eventual capture, he is sent to Guantanamo Bay, where the game ends. The game apparently only took 30 hours of development time and features music from none other than Immortal Technique. But all these years later, perception of Snowden has become a bit more complicated. Some people love him and some people are highly critical of him. To make a long story short, the suspicious circumstances of the leaks left some people thinking he very well could have been a spy, and his recent commentary around and following the Russian invasion of Ukraine was notable. Basically, he was heavily ridiculing the idea that Russia would invade Ukraine at the time, but since then he's walked back some of his statements. It's also impossible to ignore that Snowden has made a lot of money since his leaks, apparently collecting over $1 million in 2020 alone from speaking fees. There's also been allegations that in some of his old internet accounts, he's made some pretty distasteful comments about fearing Muslims. So what's been happening with the man himself in recent times? Well, US officials still describe Snowden as a traitor and say he should return to the US and face criminal charges. Snowden himself has said his ultimate goal is to return to the United States and has apparently been in contact with the US government on how this might happen. However, it seems unlikely that the two sides will reach an agreement in the near future. Snowden has been granted Russian citizenship and makes most of his income with speeches. In 2016, he became the president of the Freedom of the Press Foundation, a San Francisco-based nonprofit that aims to protect journalists from hacking and government surveillance. In 2019, Snowden released his memoir, but the US Justice Department quickly sued him to recover all his earnings from the book, claiming that he had violated his non-disclosure agreement with the CIA and NSA. He's also gone on to marry his long-term girlfriend, and their son was born in December 2020. That about brings us up to the current day. So whatever happened to Edward Snowden? Well, the legacy of his leaks have lived on, and the debates caused by them have seeped into the public consciousness. As far as the man himself, he's definitely taken more of a backseat from the spotlight, but his story is most likely far from over. Now, a lot could be said about this entire story, and admittedly, I've only scratched the surface here. It's not outside the realm of possibility he could get a pardon, return back to the US, or even be caught up in another series of high-profile dramatic events. But regardless of how you view him, he has a legacy that deserves to be remembered. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support as I try to get this channel off the ground. If you want to do more to support me, you can check out my Patreon in the description below. And if you ever have any suggestions about what you want me to cover next, just drop a comment. I'm always interested. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.